Ladies and gentlemen, the Premier of the Province of Nova Scotia, Premier Stephen McNeil.
Listen, it's really my pleasure to be here. I say this every time. I said it today, and I'll say it again. It's great to come and see my neighbors, come across the hill from Annapolis County to say hello. We have, there may be a hill dividing us, but we have so much in common as communities. And I'm getting a thing that I should move the mic, but maybe I'll just stand back. But we have so many things in common, and probably the most important thing that we have in common is a real sense of community. From whether you live in Annapolis County or here in Lunenburg or Queens County, or individual communities have such a great sense of pride of place. And when I come across the hill, that same pride of place I see, that I see at home, I see here. And I want to congratulate all of you on keeping that spirit of community and pride of place. It is what really defines us. There's this great conversation going on about municipal amalgamations. And you heard in my bio, I'm from a small town nearby named Bridgetown. And we're having our challenges. But to the credit of those municipal leaders and citizens of the town, they've come together to look for a different way to deliver services to the people to ensure that town and that community survives, our community survives. And some people have worried about losing their municipal government will lose their identity. And I hate to tell you this, but I, for one, don't think my municipal government is my identity, nor is it my provincial government. My identity and my community's identity is the very community and people that are living in that community who make up what it is that we believe in and the things that we value and the things that we support as individual families and individual members. That's what really makes up community. And as we all struggle with the changes that are happening both municipally and provincially and nationally, we need to stay focused on the very thing that it is us collectively that make up the special parts of our province, of our counties, of our country. And not the governance models that we have or those that have given the privilege to sit in the seat. I've said this many times, I've been given the privilege to be the Premier of the province, but my time will come and go, and someone else will be in. It's the office of the Premier that's important, and if it's used for the good that it can be used for, and it can be used for the right reasons for the people of this province, that's what's important in my mind. I want to acknowledge the young people who are here. I went over and said hello to them, and I said 30 years ago, I didn't quite tell you the year, but I'll say it now, it's almost 31 years ago, I was the president of our Students' Council in Bridgetown. And I reminisced about that today because we lost a great Nova Scotian, Noel Knockwood, who was a leader in the Aboriginal community. Well, Noel came to my high school back in 1983 and spoke about human rights and our place and Aboriginal treaties. And but I told everyone, I'm going to tell everyone else in this room, they better start treating you guys better because one of you is going to be the Premier in the next 30 years. Ian mentioned about the challenges we face, and I don't want to go through them all. We all know the demographic challenges we face. We know the tough economic challenges we face. We know for a number of decades we've been the worst performing economy in the country. We also know that we've been stubborn when it comes to change, not only as individuals, but as elected officials, we've been stubborn to change. And if we continue down the road of where we're going, we're going to continue to fall further and further behind. We as a government have to recognize the things that we do have to change. In the very short period of time of being given the privilege to be in government, we began to recognize very early on the way we fund capital projects in this province is really unbelievable. We would make an announcement one year, we'd lay out a capital plan and we would ignore it. 4 years later, when the projects would come to completion, if they were over budget, we'd write another check. and continue down the road of growing the deficit of this province. We've instituted for the first time the stage gating process. So when we announce a project in the province of Nova Scotia, regardless of what community it is, we're going to follow it from start to finish. If we see that it's going off the rails, that we see that the expenditures are increasing beyond what was estimated, then we have tough choices to make as a government. We either continue down, that we continue to make the enhancements and prove that that capital project goes forward, but what it'll mean is that in year 4 and 5, we have to say no to some other projects, because it is absolutely critical that we start to live within the fiscal envelope that we as a province have. We cannot continue, and that is not suggesting at all that any of these projects are not valuable. It's not suggesting the communities don't need them, but at some point, we have to stop continuing to borrowing money from the next generation of young Nova Scotians as we go forward. It means that we as a government have to do things differently. It means we just laid out a budget recently, and Minister Fury would know this in his department. You walk in, you present it with some numbers, asked to make decisions on a number of projects without getting the full picture of what's happening in your individual department or really across government. So the good news is that once this budget's passed, we start building a new budget for next year. It means that each department will be brought before Treasury Board. Each minister is going to have to defend their budgets line by line. Each minister is going to have to be held accountable for the decisions that their governments, that their departments are making on behalf of the people of this province. No longer will we wait till December to determine what our budget's going to look like. It is absolutely critical that if we're going to ask Nova Scotians to change the way they've been doing business, to change the way that they've envisioned receiving services, then we as an elected body and as a government need to lead the way. And I've been so encouraged by the support that I've been receiving from the public sector. Men and women who work very hard, let me tell you, on your behalf. They work very hard to deliver on the mandate of the particular elected government. And they do so because they also believe in Nova Scotia. And they want to be part of making things better. And I've reassured all of them, and I would ask each of you to say this to anyone that you know that's a public servant, that when you use the phrase, that damn government, you're not talking about them, you're talking about me. Because it's important. It's important they will be part of the change that is coming forward. This has been an interesting period of time for us as a government. The last number of weeks, months have been challenging. As you know, you've seen the essential service legislation that came before the legislature. In the last 7 months, we've had 3 different potential health care disruptions, one with paramedics, one with home support workers, and the final one was with Capital Health, nurses. We had a union on one side, we had an employer on the other, and in the middle were Nova Scotians, some of whom who've waited a long time to receive service, some of whom needed care immediately. It's amazing how many Nova Scotians on a weekly basis rely on our healthcare system to be there for them and their family. Whether it's chronic disease management, whether it is how many Nova Scotians are using dialysis from one end of this province to the other. They rely on our healthcare system to be alive, quite frankly, but they rely on it on a weekly basis. And it is absolutely critical that the essential services that Nova Scotians rely on are in place. Was it tough to pass that legislation? Absolutely. But it was the right thing to do for Nova Scotians. We preserved the right for healthcare workers, if they so choose, to strike at a date, but they cannot do so until each and every Nova Scotian knows that the essential service level of healthcare will be there for them and their family. There was also the issue of patient to nurse ratio. And I want to tell you, there are challenges on floors and wings in healthcare facilities, not only in the capital, but in some other parts of our province. And Minister Gilveen is going around the province engaging in those conversations. But those are not, the answers to those problems are not in the collective agreement. binding a generation of future Nova Scotians to decisions around the kind of staffing that will be required to deliver health care is nonsensical. It needs to be fluid. We need to allow managers to do their jobs to deliver on delivering services to the people of this province. The collective agreement has a place, but it shouldn't be dictating on how we deliver services to the people of our province, particularly in a way that, quite frankly, would be unaffordable for us as a province to deliver on. That's how we as a government are going to embark on the next 4 years, of looking at ways that we as a government and a bureaucracy can change the way we deliver services, and quite frankly, the way we respond to the people who deliver services, to you and to all Nova Scotians. The Ivany Commission laid out a very stark conversation for all of us. It was a kind of a, I don't think they told us anything we didn't know, to be honest with you. I think we all look at the demographic challenges. We all have seen the economic challenges. We've regardless of what community, but when it was being told to us by a panel of unelected people who had no vested interest in the answer that was coming out, other than that they were Nova Scotians, we began to listen and pay attention. And there's a spirit around this report that is gaining momentum. We as a government, under the leadership of Deputy Minister Bernie Miller, will be responding to a plan on how we began to not implement what was there, but to begin to capture the spirit of what was in the Ivany report, and that was what is a cultural change, not just from the elected body, but from each of us as citizens of our respective communities. There are lots of opportunities that were in what the Ivany Commission had talked about. And if you look around, there are entrepreneurs and communities that have figured it out in advance of the report. Today I was here to open the Bridgewater and Area Family Health Center. Congratulations. What a great job all of you have done. I know there's one soon to be in Chester. These health centers are the community responding in a way that the answer is coming from the community. And if you look at what the Ivany Commission talked about, it really was looking inward. And where are the answers to the challenges that not only do you face as a business or as individuals, but the answers that we face collectively as a community are often lying within our respective communities. The health center here is a reflection of the way you and the services that you want to receive. The fact that there are 3 nurse practitioners here, 2 physicians, more healthcare providers coming. You look across many multiple disciplines of delivering health care to you as a community in an institution that reflects your hopes as a community. That's a positive thing. You will begin to see some innovation that's happening in the private sector around research and development. I often talk about the wine industry. And is anyone here from Petite Riviere? Well, don't be shy, it's a beautiful place. Well, you know what? We need to tell more Nova Scotians, and even those snotty people in the valley where I come from, that you can grow grapes in Petite Riviere and you can grow wine. But it's through research and development. It's taking the assets that we have and it's linking them together. It's recognizing that the answers to many of our challenges lie within inside of our own collective communities. It's been a great story. The variety of grapes is different, but the wine is just as good. And it's looking at the Honeycrisp apple in the valley. I spoke about this many times. What's the next one? We've invested in this year in our budget $200,000 a year for the next 5 years to be able to identify what is the next apple that we can grow, that we can look for an export market of high value, that we can return that money back into the province of Nova Scotia. I know there's been many challenges around what's happened in Queens County around the closure of Bridgewater. That site, though, has now become a bit of an incubator of looking at what are the opportunities that we can do in terms of research and development and understanding how do we, while we continue to maximize the value of our fiber in the forest sector. I see a family over there for generations that have been continuing to do that. How do we continue to maximize the value of that fiber, at the same time looking for new opportunities? Using the stuff that's already happening. How do we marry together the ingenuity of the private sector with our research and development opportunities that we have right here in Nova Scotia? We for too long have believed that we continue to do things the same way. That we continue to believe that there will be we'll get over this hurdle and the cloud will disappear and the sun will come out again and I'll be able to do the same thing my parents did and I'll be able to make a living in the same community I did and everything will be okay. Well, that day is done. We need to look at how do we not get rid or ignore or disappear what they did, but how do we build on it? How do we take it to the next level? How do we modernize it to reflect 2014 and the opportunities that exist in 2014? We have a European free trade deal that the national government is trying to negotiate and finalize. And it's my hope that we can convince the federal government to partner with us, to help prepare Nova Scotia entrepreneurs to take advantage of that opportunity. And what it'll mean is that we have to think about things differently. We have a lot of people who export into the US. Well, let's think about what are the opportunities if we export into Europe or in Asia? And what are the things we have to do to prepare our businesses to go to work in those countries and those continents? If we have businesses who are doing great work here, but haven't thought about exporting, how do we get them to think about exporting? What are the tools that we can use collectively to prepare ourselves to capitalize on the opportunities that are before us? We can't wait for the day that we sign it in 2017 and then say, oh yeah, geez, there's good opportunities there for us. Because others won't wait. We have to say now, identify those opportunities. Yes, there will be those in this province who've figured out how to export despite their government, and they will continue to export, and they'll be able to grow their exports. But what about the rest who may be only exporting into one market, or quite frankly haven't thought about it, but have the potential to do it? That's where I believe our greatest opportunity is looking at that, looking at what's happening and the opportunities that we see beyond, and not being afraid to say, yes, we can. We can be part of that. It's not just for a few Nova Scotians who are risky and building. We can do that. If you're able to drive a business in this province, you can drive a business that can export. If you have been running a business in this province now, and you've been surviving through these tough economic times, you can grow your business in this province. Absolutely. We just need to start believing that we can make that happen. We are changing our focus on economic development as a government. And our focus will not be on individual entrepreneurs, but it will be on that sector development opportunity. And it plays into the exporting opportunity that will exist for us as a province. We need to drive exports. we have no choice. We need to be able to drive our products out of this province to bring back much needed revenue, to be able to drive job growth in Nova Scotia. And let me be clear, it won't be your government creating the jobs in this province. It will have to be many of you. We've taken a fair bit of criticism about canceling the graduate retention rebate program. It was a tough decision. It was a $50 million decision. But what it was providing a rebate for someone who had a job already. And it had to be a very good paying job in order to receive that $2,500 rebate. And I know there are, and some of you probably know people, and maybe some of you have been able to use that rebate. 3 of my cabinet ministers would have been eligible for it next year because they're finishing their master's degrees. It was focused in the wrong direction. It was supposed to be about job growth. Well, they already had jobs. It was about trying to provide opportunities for those who are graduating today. It's why we've focused the money on doubling the apprenticeship opportunities in Nova Scotia, to provide more young apprentices the opportunity to find a job right here. It's why we've taken some of the money and focused in research programs to keep university students here doing research work in Nova Scotia, looking towards commercialization, instead of having them go to Waterloo or some other part of Canada or beyond. And it's why we've put together and we'll be announcing a program called Graduate to Opportunities. And it will be providing incentives to businesses in this province to hire university and community college students, giving them their first job. That's the retention piece. Rewarding my daughter because she has a job already, it's nice, but it doesn't grow the job opportunities for people in this province. It means we have to change. We're going to do our part over the next 4 years of holding the line, making tough decisions, but we need your help. There is no way, we've had a belief in this province through all political parties that government is the answer and can solve all of our challenges. And when there's a tough news to be delivered, we just rally around and finally we'll get a politician that will say they'll change their mind and write the check. We have to change that. If it's a good decision, if it's a good investment for our collective well-being, government should be part of that. But the answer to the challenges that we face lies outside of government in many ways. We play a role. People who work for government play a role. And they play a great role in many ways. But really, when it comes to job growth, sustainability, it will have to come from the private sector. Our investments will be towards sector development, towards targeting opportunities for young people to get their first job in this province. It will be encouraging business owners to take a chance on a young person. We will partner with you if you take that chance. And it will be about thinking about where our place is globally. You know, we in many ways are doing things the way we did 25 years ago. You know, and I often think about it. I have the good fortune of living in the same house I grew up in, same house I was able to raise my children in. And I often think about my own childhood and my own, when I left high school, you know, I left many of my graduate friends, left many of my friends behind. Occasionally we'd get together on period. Well, these guys will leave high school, and it was almost like they'd never left because they'll communicate every day, no matter what part of the world they're in. They will have stayed connected. They will know what each other's doing. They will live through that. That's what we need to do as a province. We need to connect ourselves to what's happening around us and look at where the opportunities exist for us. And quite frankly, not be afraid. Not be afraid. You know what? We might fail once in a while. We might. So what? Each of us have failed. Each of us have gotten up, moved on, and seized the next opportunity that's come before us. Let's not be afraid to take that chance, because I'm betting on each of you to ensure that I can have a healthy retirement in this province. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here.